This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Kicking off hour 2 here of Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you, live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. We will wrap up the NFL's wild card weekend tonight. And I guess it's not the weekend anymore now that it's Monday.
Technically.
But
who knows? I mean, they call it wild card weekend still, so.
Yeah, we're not going to let technicalities get in the way of us having a good time. Texans Steelers going head to head here today. As you're looking at the market, are we seeing more 2.5s pop, or what are people thinking about that love on the 3?
No, I think we'll probably get some of that movement. If we do, I think we'll probably get it closer to kickoff. I mean, there are a couple of books, not some of the bigger shops out there, that have some 2.5s out there. You know, if you have like the Score or if you have Sugar House or Bet Rivers, those are the 2.5s that are out there right now. So if you're somewhere where you can get to down on one of those, then that is, I think, the play. But right now, market wide, we'll call it, consensus is that 3 juiced to the dog side. You see this number, this is from DraftKings, ever so slightly shaded. Some spots are at minus 120. So if you do like the Steelers and you think 3 is fair, there's a couple of 3 even monies out there that you can go ahead and grab. That, of course, would be spots like BetMGM who've got that too. So as I've said, I'll be waiting to see if I can get a 2.5 that's widely available that I can grab myself. And I think that if you get me under that 3, we've had this conversation with Derek before when he was joining us on our Sundays, which were absolutely phenomenal. Derek Stevens, of course, owner, CEO here at Circa, which was the value of the number versus the price that you're paying, and a 2.5 even at minus 120, I think that's enough in a playoff game for me.
We're going to dive into the prop market on this game in a moment. Did also want to let you know that coming up in just a little bit, we'll give our first look and early thoughts on the College Football Playoff National Championship. That matchup is set between Indiana and Miami at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. We'll have Call Me Crazy Butt, and we'll do some final best bets at the end of the hour.
I'm just laughing because speaking of the National Championship, boy, oh boy, you could tell that Raiders media and fans are very excited for the expected number 1 overall pick, with some media members out here in Vegas calling Fernando Mendoza a better prospect than Joe Burrow.
What?
Oh,
no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, buddy. Everybody is very randy about the thought of Fernando Mendoza being a Las Vegas Raider.
Okay, that's fascinating. Also,
did you see they had it during the broadcast, the 2 side by side, the tale of the tape of their 2 seasons. It was Joe Burrow and Fernando Mendoza. Oddly enough, what was absent from that was the actual statistics, passing touchdowns, interceptions, things like that. And it's like the American Psycho. Like, let's see Paul Allen's card. Let's see the statistics, and let's see how these guys compare.
Well, listen, Juwan Jennings was a better high school quarterback than Joe Burrow, too. So I understand that, these comps are very, very important to
better prospect.
Everyone involved.
Generational prospect.
Speaking of college football as well, though, and the draft, Dante Moore, will he, won't he enter the draft? We just got the news that Dylan Raiola has officially committed to Oregon.
Save it.
Okay, yeah, sorry. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Dylan Raiola signs after Patrick Mahomes is forced to wear an Oregon jersey. Interesting.
I can't with you. Let's get back into this Monday night matchup, though. We already gave you the stat a little bit earlier, kind of the witchcraft and wizardry that the Steelers have had on Monday nights, which is a little bit wild at home specifically. 23 straight outright wins, 16-7 against the spread, 12 straight wins in the Tomlin era. So can the streak continue in a gotta-have-it game, especially considering the postseason lack of success that the Steelers have had? 0-6 outright and ATS, their last 6 postseason games. That is the longest active ATS playoff losing streak in the National Football League right now. This total sitting at 38.5, also the lowest postseason total since another Texans game back in 2016-17. Brock Osweiler versus Connor Cook, which did go over, by the way, and shout out my boy Brock, who won that game in the AFC wildcard, my broadcasting partner for college football. One angle, though, that I do have a bet placed on in this game, and we're going to get to some player props in a moment, but as we talk about some of the alternate ways that we can bet this thing, I played the Texans in the first half.
Okay.
And there are a number of reasons for this. And I know that we talk a lot about some of the shortcomings of this Houston Texans offense, but they have been really fast starting, especially lately, leading by at least a field goal at the half in 7 straight games, if not more. And the Steelers, as we've talked about a number of times this season, like Aaron Rodgers in the fourth quarter, those final drives, he's putting it all together. That has not been the case early in games. While they've been a clutch scoring team at times, the first quarters, first halves, been very slow starting. only had a field goal the first half last week against Baltimore, 6 points against the Browns, did tie Detroit at the half at 10, just 7 first half points against the Dolphins, though. Houston, meanwhile, gives up the second fewest points per drive in the NFL and forces the most field goals. And there is a streak that I don't know if you guys have seen this. Evan Abrams was the first person I saw from Action Network. The Steelers, on this 6-game losing streak in the postseason, have been outscored 73-0 in the first quarter. And I know that those teams of old have no impact on what this team is.
Sure about that?
But the fact that this team also has scored 7 points or less in 69 straight first quarters, dating back to 2022, so that's all of this season as well included in that,
yeah,
I think bodes well for kind of my thought process in this game.
So give me that stat one more time.
The Pittsburgh Steelers have been outscored 73-0 in the first quarters of this postseason losing streak that they've been on. And over their last 69 straight first quarters as a team, have not scored more than a touchdown. And
Ben Roethlisberger started how many of those? Probably a couple, right? The beginning of the streak? I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Look, I think that we have seen that the Texans can get off to some pretty quick starts. I think it makes some sense. The Steelers, I just think in general, regardless of your stat of slow starts and historically and everything, the Steelers, I think, offense is going to be up against it here. Even outside, once you get off your scripted plays or whatever it is, even your scripted plays, I just really think that this. I mentioned this, I think it was the Monday that you were gone because you weren't here at the beginning of last week when we had our wild card matchup set. And I asked, just on paper, is this the biggest mismatch? And we're post a couple of these wild card games, obviously, but is this the biggest position versus unit mismatch? Texans defense versus Steelers offense. And I still think that might be true. And I think we might see that manifest here in this game. So even outside of some of the statistics and trends or whatever it is, at the end of the day, it's just a really good defense that I think matches up really well with the Steelers offense that I think could find itself stuck in the mud throughout most of this game. And that includes, of course, the first half where they could maybe get off to a slow start.
There are some props I know we want to get into. And I think as part of that matchup with the Texans defense and the Steelers offense, it was interesting to hear how complimentary Matt Burke, their defensive coordinator, had been about the running back room, most notably Kenneth Gainwell. Here is him on the podium.
Yeah, both backs are really good. Warren, really good contact balance, low to the ground, just really runs through tackles, steps out of a lot of tackles. I think both of them, Gainwell, obviously, their leading receiver from a catch standpoint, just systematically, they just like to get those guys in space. So, the outside zone, run game, trying to get on the perimeter, and then just in the screen game, the quick game, the check down, the swing passes, they just design those guys to get the ball in space and take some one-on-one shots. So really going to be obviously just in the run game in particular, setting edges and holding our perimeter and tackling well, and then just trying to take up some of that space when they're trying to get them out. They're just trying to design those guys to get into space and get the ball in their hands and make them work. So really trying to take some of that space away.
Saunders said it when we talked to Mount Saunders, the Steelers beat reporter for SteelersNow.com. The Texans very good in space, and he even thought Gainwell might not be a game for him today. They might be really keying on that, and maybe it's more of a Warren-type game where you're running up the middle, running into the teeth of the defense and trying to work that. Because if there is a weak link, and it's hard to find a weak link for this Texans defense, there are run numbers, efficiency-wise, things like that. That is where they rank lowest. Now, they're still an above-average team. But if there was a thing you point to that sticks out, it would that they rank in the double digits quite often across the board in a lot of the defensive rushing metrics.
Jaylen Warren, 52.5. The rushing yards prop, 15.5. The temps. Gainwell, another thing that Saunders mentioned was the 73 receptions that he has, leads the team. The receiving yards number for him set at 33.5, 4.5 the receptions number, and it is juiced at -145 to the over. He has hit the 50-yard receiving mark in 2 of the last 4 games, at least 5 receptions in each. So could that be, that outlet option for Rodgers, who likes to get the ball out fast, but obviously they're aware of that. So what does that ultimately look like? I didn't end up buying in on anything there. Were there any player props that you were particularly interested in?
So I think there's a couple here. Let's look at C.J. Stroud.
Okay.
On the ground. So if you look at C.J. Stroud weeks 1 through 9, in 8 games, Stroud ran the ball 29 times for 189 yards at 6.5 yards per attempt. Since he has come back, Stormy, care to guess how many rushing yards he has in 6 games?
What you got?
20. He has not run the ball at all since he's come back from injury. Now, this might be a design. It might be you're coming back from injury. You don't want to put you at risk. You might not need it in some of these games as well. But I think we tend to see this with these games, these quarterbacks. When you're talking about playoffs, when you're talking about win or go home, quarterbacks like Stroud, I think, are going to be asked to do a little bit more, especially with their legs. And if you're in situations where the pocket breaks down and you can find an alley, especially against a good pass rushing team, you can get a good chunk on the ground with your legs. And we know that Stroud, at the course of his career, again, at the beginning of the season, he was averaging 6.5 yards a clip. He can do it. So I think looking at C.J. Stroud over rushing yards, it's set at 11.5 at multiple spots. You can find that over -120. A lot of other spots are at 12.5. If you wanted to go over rushing attempts at 3.5 as well, or longest rush at 8.5. First half rushing yard or first quarter rushing yards, it's like 4.5. But I think that this is a pretty muted number, and a lot of it ties into what we've seen from him near the end of the year. I think he's going to be asked to do more, and I think he's going to be willing to do more in a playoff game here.
Okay, I like that angle. I'm also hoping that he can target Dalton Schultz a good bit here. Looking through some of the numbers for the Steelers defense, they are 4th worst in the NFL against the tight end, giving up 65.9 receiving yards per game to opposing tight ends. Schultz prop at 41.5, 42.5, depending on where you look. He's top 70 2 of the last 4 games, so maybe that could be a matchup problem for the Steelers defense once again today. And reminder, this time of year, we got to grub up while we're watching these playoff games, and Omaha Steaks has you covered. Omaha Steaks, the official sponsor of tailgating right now. When you spend $129, you can score 2 pounds of fully cooked chicken wings plus 50% off site-wide when you go over to omahasteaks.com/VSIN. That's /VSIN. Again, spend $129. Super easy to do, especially all the great stuff they have over at Omaha Steaks. You get 2 pounds of wings and save 50% off site-wide. omahasteaks.com/VSIN. Minimum purchase required. See site for details. Call me crazy, but coming up after this.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSIN Pro. VSIN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSIN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on Money Moves, remember, ProfitX is the #1 place for college hoops and college football player props as we have some fun with the national championship coming up. They've got all players, all schools, every state that ProfitX is available. We get closer to March Madness and the end of the college football season. Take advantage of ProfitX's 20% purchase match today. Download ProfitX now. Experience the future of winning. Use the promo code VSIN to get started. That's VSIN when you download ProfitX and get that 20% purchase match today.
Put on your tinfoil hats.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
The whole world gone
Crazy!
for Call Me Crazy, but
All right, let's get into it on this overreaction or proper reaction Monday. Call me crazy, but Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. And I texted you this. I've brought it up to you numerous times because I think it's so true. Call me crazy, but Kyle Shanahan's Coach of the Year odds, if they were still up and posted right now, would have taken money after yesterday's performance, even though everybody knows the playoffs have no bearing on it and the votes are already tabulated. I guarantee you, if that odds market was up, it would have shifted.
Well, there are certain odds markets that are up, and it did increase by a percentage point from 1% to 2%. So you are not incorrect. Somehow, some way, his odds to win, despite votes already being in, have improved, even by a certain percentage. You're right. These markets guess at almost everything. They're trying to pull at strings. They have no idea what's going on. Same could be said here.
It just cracks me up because we saw how the odds lengthened astronomically after that Week 18 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. And then following yesterday's game, all of the talk shows that I'm hearing about today are like, Kyle Shanahan's got to be Coach of the Year. If he's not, it's criminal. The job that he has done. Oh, you mean what we've been talking about forever? But then all of a sudden, the market totally flipped on its head after one loss, even though they were playing for the 1 seed? Okay, neither here nor there. Where do you want to go first?
Let's go to the NBA. This has been incredible, folks. I was waiting, hoping, praying that this Nikola Jokic injury was going to cause this Nuggets team to plummet, and instead, that has not been the case. You call me crazy, but this might be the lowest the Nuggets are on the futures board, and it might be time to buy. This team is 4-3 in the 7 games since Jokic has gotten injured. The crazy part, Stormy, is it is a different person almost every night. They beat the Toronto Raptors coming right out against him after losing Jokic. It's Watson with 24. They beat Philadelphia in an overtime game. It's Pickett with 29. Watson against Cesar Bacon against the Celtics with 30 points. Last night, Tim Hardaway Jr. with 25 in a win over the Milwaukee Bucks. And let me read you the schedule now as we move forward. Pelicans, Mavericks, Wizards, Hornets. These next 4 games, even afterwards, they play the Lakers. They get them at home. Wizards, Bucks again. Ja Morantless Grizzlies. This is such an opportunity for this team now. They could do more than just stay afloat without Jokic. They could rip off a winning record in the month without him, and they're never going to get farther than 8-1. I added them to win the NBA Finals. You call me crazy. This might be the time to do it.
I'm here for it. OKC's minus 125 to win the conference.
Yes.
You like a shot on the Nuggets at plus 425 too, or 5-1?
No, I would agree. So we talked about this on Pot of the Futures last week where, look, the Thunder deserve to be the favorites. I'm not going to call this like we did last year, the Oklahoma City Invitational, because it is not that. The Nuggets, when they're fully formed, I think can push this team and might even be better than them given some of the matchup issues that they give to Oklahoma City. They should not be odds-on favorites to win that conference, especially when you have a team like Denver lurking, and I think that's the way you kind of attack OKC. Maybe not so much the finals, although I do think Denver against any of these Eastern Conference teams, should they make it out, would be favored, obviously. But I do think that Western Conference and the finals, it's worth adding just to attack OKC in different ways.
You're not crazy? Maybe I do need to add it, and I do love a fully formed nugget, preferably with barbecue sauce. Let's go into, you're so rude.
There's barbecue sauce in there?
I don't know if I want that one.
It's sitting out there for a while.
We all saw the confrontation on the sideline for the Eagles and 49ers game in which Nick Sirianni and A.J. Brown were getting into it. Here is Sirianni after the game on the debacle.
I was trying to get him off the field, because we were about to punt, and that was really it. So I love AJ. I think he knows how I feel about him. I have a special relationship with him. We've probably went through every emotion you can possibly have together. We've laughed together. We've cried together. We've yelled at each other. We're both emotional. I was trying to get him off the field, and you never want. That happens in this game. That happens in this game, but I love him.
Yep, mostly yelled at each other, though. Mm-hmm. And this isn't new. I don't think anyone, when they saw that altercation on the sideline, thought, oh, man, I'm surprised by this. Never seen A.J. Brown do that. Call me crazy, but you need to get A.J. Brown out of here. And especially in a game like that where all you're doing week after week is screaming about how you need the football and you need the targets and you need it coming your way, and then you don't deliver at all, and there's multiple drops. And I get not all of them were on him, but to be 3 of 7 in that position and then be female dogging to your coach on the sideline because of it. Yeah, but it wasn't for this audience, so it's for you. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? I am not about it. I think he is more of a he causes more problems than he solves.
I think you might be crazy here.
I'm happy to be told I'm crazy on this because I want nothing to do with A.J. Brown.
You witnessed this a couple of weeks ago. I mean, there might have been a shouting match in this very studio. This is how some people communicate. When you're teammates, when you know each other, you're willing to...
He's not talking about us, by the way.
...yell at each other and let each other's feelings be known, and then guess what happens? All right, we're good. You let it out. Now you move on with the rest of your life.
Yeah, you guys don't work together.
Yeah, we do. We're with Paul Howard all the time. Paul Howard and I yelled at each other 2 or 3 weeks ago in the studio. It happens. You work it out, then you move on. What I think is more damning...
Don't wear sweatshirts anymore, and this won't happen.
That never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. Jalen Hurts on if he wants A.J. Brown back. A.J. and I have talked. We're in a great place. I know you all can talk to him and ask. That was it.
Oh, but they can't talk to him and ask. You know why? Because he refused to do media yesterday. Because he's he's a problem. He's a problem. Okay, what's next for you?
All right, by the way, in this analogy, I'm totally... am I Nick Sirianni or A.J. Brown? Who's Paul Howard?
You're A.J. Brown for sure. For sure.
Call me crazy, but one of the biggest games of the season going down tonight. north of the border in Toronto between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Toronto Raptors. First off, yesterday, brilliant game in which Scotty Barnes, with a 37-8, I believe, stat line, with the game on the line, gets a foul called on, or excuse me, draws a foul, Stormy, at the free throw line with less than a second left, hits the first and misses the second on purpose to get it done. The reason I bring this up, we talked about this last week, brought it up on Pot of the Futures as well. Raptors were about 50-1 to win this division, just 2.5 games back. Got a big win over the 76ers yesterday and can grab another one here. They're down to 22-1. I would argue it's one of the biggest games of the season.
You're crazy.
Tonight.
You're crazy. One of the biggest games of the season is tonight. But it is the Los Angeles Clippers hosting the Charlotte Hornets, baby. We got a big one in the nightcap.
Can we pull the Hornets win-o-meter? Or is it not been updated? Because we do have an added win after, of course, a historical blowout of the Utah Jazz over the weekend for the Charlotte Hornets, which elicited a text, we'll have the win-o-meter tomorrow, from somebody saying, can this be a real box score? That was your husband. And I said, F yeah, it is.
150-95.
Hell yeah, dude.
And yet, and that's a road win, mind you. And yet, couldn't handle business as a favorite against the Pacers. What is the world? Call me crazy, but reporter wardrobes need to chill. I can't tell you how many text messages I got of Aaron Andrews on the television screen yesterday. And I will tell our audience what I told you and what I told everyone else that sent me that picture yesterday. Why are we doing this? It is the minute that she came on screen, and I think EA is a very good reporter. The minute that she came on screen, nobody listened to a word she said anymore. All they were talking about was that jacket. It's so unnecessary, and it's something I know myself and a lot of reporters try to avoid at all costs, is bringing attention to yourself unnecessarily because it's not about you.
You know what's funny is yesterday, coming into today, when I saw that, there was only going to be one reporter whose actions I thought were deserving of criticism yesterday. This is a ridiculous. There is, like you said, this says one thing. It's look at me. And that's all that is. It's like the second, you're right. I stopped listening to a second she said it. This is all I could think about. And yet, this is just the second most ridiculous thing from a reporter yesterday.
I'm sure a lot of you saw what transpired on the podium between a reporter who was, yes, very sweet to Liam Cohen after the Jacksonville Jaguars lost, telling him what a great job that young man did. But you were not having it in the idea of, like, that's just not what you're supposed to do as a reporter.
No.
And if you did want to have that conversation, I think you can have it privately, but very unnecessary to do in that moment. And the fact that it was getting as much praise as it did struck me as a little bit odd. I mean, think about how many of you at home sit on your couch watching a broadcast and scream at people for being homers, and then this is what you celebrate. I find it odd.
I would agree. Final minute, I got one for you here. He is the second choice on the board to win MVP. Call me crazy. Luka Doncic has no shot at winning MVP. This is absolutely ridiculous. Yes, the counting stats are there, but Stormy, when he's on the court, they only outscore their opponents by 1.5 points every 100 possessions. He continues to be a cantankerous black hole on defense, constantly complaining about officiating while not getting back on the other end of the floor. He does absolutely nothing to add value to this team. It is ridiculous. He should not be the second shot. He doesn't have a chance at winning this award.
Cantankerous black hole, just like A.J. Brown on the sideline. I think that's a good sidebar.
Or
Plus
me?
550. Jonathan Von Tobel nailed it.
I might have annoyed you yesterday.
If he shouldn't be the second shot, who should? Cade Cunningham?
I mean, yeah, it's a very big chasm. Yes,
that's a gap.
Added some Cade last week at 30-1, and I think he's worth adding a little bit.
Okay, we got to step aside. When we come back, though, like we said, first look at the National Championship. We are 1 week out from Miami, Indiana. Stick around. More Money Moves after this.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, going to get into some college football here in a moment with the National Championship officially set. Indiana and Miami going head-to-head a week from today. Going to be a fun one. But before that, we do have some tweets coming in. Thank you guys so much for chiming in, as always. Brian M., I love this. He said, with the matchup this week, 49ers and Seattle Seahawks going head-to-head, maybe we need a guest show bet with Kendall when she comes on Wednesday. Maybe we do. Or maybe I just need to let JVT handle that segment by himself because we'll be so at odds. It was a blessing in disguise that I wasn't here for Week 18, I think.
Any excuse to dip out.
I need a break. I'm really tired.
Yes, I'm sure you are. You're the only one.
Yeah, you're not. You don't have multiple things going on in your life at all. Also, Peter Bellender said, "The Bears at home. Time to buy some more Malort. Have preseason tickets on the Bears and San Francisco to win the NFC." Which of those tickets would you rather have in hand? Bears or 49ers?
I'm going to make this promise, this declaration right now. I will say this right now, okay? If the Bears, because I can't achieve the complete feat that I'm about to say, but I will give it my best shot. If the Bears make it to the Super Bowl, I will do my best to chug as much Malort out of a bottle as I possibly can. I desperately need them to. This is my promise. I will do it. I will not finish the bottle, and I might throw up on camera, but I will do my best effort to chug as much Malort as possible before I yak if the Bears make it to the Super Bowl.
And if anybody didn't know, JVT has a Bears ticket as part of the tournament here at Circa. So you are very pro Bears in general. So I think you would gladly down that Malort if this were to happen.
Yes, if I had to do this, absolutely. I would love it.
So this actually presents another idea in my head that I'm curious where you want to take this. We, for a time, we're looking at the NFC like it's going to be NFC over AFC no matter what.
Yeah.
And yet, I look at the Rams, I look at the Seahawks, who are the top two teams remaining in that conference, and both of them have warts and have flaws about them that make them feel untrustworthy to me. Could there be a shot that one of these dogs, maybe your Bears being that team, could upset the apple cart and get that spot?
I mean, I think you could, but I think I'd challenge you to zoom out. Which of these teams just left at all? Do you really believe?
Completely fair.
You know, like all of these teams you look at and you're like, all right, there's that problem with that team. There's that problem with that team. So I just think, as we have spoken many times throughout the year, the regular season was very exciting. Coming into the postseason, this seems, we say it a lot, but this does very much seem like it is wide open.
Yeah.
There seems to be no dominant power in this playoff field right now. And so if I took every single one of these teams, and I think outside of maybe the Steelers are probably a team that a lot of people outside of the Pittsburgh area would say or one they don't take seriously to win this. So of all of these teams outside of the Steelers, if I threw them in a hat and took one out and said, hey, and the Bears I think would probably fall in that category too from the NFC, and said, here's your Super Bowl champion, would you really be that stunned? I don't think there's really any of these teams that I would be absolutely appalled and say, there's no way they do that.
I'll hit you with the numbers here real quickly. Seattle, your favorite, plus 275. Rams, plus 310. New England, plus 550. Buffalo, 6-1. The one seed in the AFC, actually the third of the AFC teams on the board here at 7-1 in the Denver Broncos. Houston, 12-1. Bears, 16-1. 49ers, 20-1. And then the aforementioned Steelers, 60-1. Last tweet here, because it is in the NBA, so I would love your opinion on this. Colin Murphy tweeting at us saying, call me crazy, but Peyton Watson is a legit most improved player candidate. Thoughts?
I think, much like Coach of the Year, there's probably a strong case to be made for a lot of different players for most improved. So I would not argue against it. I guess my rebuttal, it's not even a rebuttal. I think the problem that Watson would run into is, let's just even take our guy, Keontae George, as an example. In terms of being more improved, would voters realistically look at even the difference between Watson and Keontae George, who's scoring nearly 7 more points per game on 3 more attempts per game, who's increased his shooting percentage by about 8% or so, and say even the improvements that Peyton Watson surely has made, he's improved his scoring, but only by about 5 points. Shooting percentage has increased, specifically from 3. He's been a much better 3-point shooter. But are those small differences going to be enough to upend guys like Keontae George and others like Jalen Johnson, Denny Avdia? I think that's probably a hard ceiling to break through, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be on the ballot and receive some votes. The problem is always, are you going to be sitting on a CLV ticket, and then in reality you don't even get into the finalists? And I think that might be a problem for Watson.
And worth noting, Murphy, who chiming in here, did say, like, George Johnson, those guys that you mentioned there, like those prices are all warranted, but just looking at Watson's numbers over the last 30 days. I
will say for Colin, because he ended the tweet with what I think is even better, Adelman out there in Denver has done a brilliant job, and I think that similar to what we talked about, Coach of the Year, Most Improved Player of the Year, you can make a case for a lot of strong coaching arguments, but the fact that, as we were just discussing for the Nuggets, the fact that they're 4-3 in these games without Jokic could maybe even be better with a softer portion of the schedule. If they come out of this stretch with a winning record without Jokic and maintain enough to still win a 2 seed after their best player and the best player in basketball misses a month, that is a really strong coaching job by Adelman, who's done a really good job out there.
Okay, we are going to talk about this national championship game all week. We'll give you different deep dive angles. The prop market for this type of stuff as we got into the postseason is so fun because they have those expanded markets and different things that you can bet into. But today, let's just do kind of high, above the surface stuff here. Indiana laying 7.5 against Miami. Miami with a quote unquote home field because it's in Miami, but you know these Hoosiers are traveling. Total 48.5. No movement really off the opener on the spread until I guess we're seeing an 8.5 now here. Is this at Circa or is that at DraftKings?
That is at DraftKings.
Okay, so we're seeing some of that first movement. The initial look ahead hypothetical matchup odds on Indiana was set at them favored by 5.5. The total did move up a point from the reset opener from 47.5 to 48.5. But what do you think about this adjustment from what the initial thought was going to be on this game?
8.5 across the board, actually, at a lot of spots here. I am
That's
conflicted.
all today, mind you.
Yeah, I am conflicted because on one hand, we have Miami, been relative believers in Miami since the start of this playoff. And then now you get Indiana, who I think you're on board with my comp for them as we went into that playoff game over the weekend, which was, what if this team's just UConn? And they are just a machine that is going to tear through every opponent that they face. And I don't know what I want to do here. I'll be quite honest. I think the real argument, if you're eliminating everything, is 8.5 seems somewhat high. Miami does have a lot of strengths. I want to see what this injury report's going to look like for them and some of the details on some of these guys that were getting dinged up because that's, I think, going to be part of it for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I saw a lot of those defensive guys going down in the semifinal.
And specifically that side. I mean, that has been such a good side of the ball for them throughout this entire playoff run. The pass rush has been great. We've talked about these big, rangy defensive backs that they have that have been very good as well and opportunistic. If they're even slightly down in terms of availability there, it's going to be hard for me to realistically believe that they can't stop this machine. I mean, you even look at the way that they were playing against Oregon. Go back and watch that game. It's not like Indiana had dudes running wide open. Those were a lot of tough throws and a lot of tough catches. And if you're just going to be down one or two bodies, that's going to be a small problem for Miami. Oregon, I thought, played them relatively well, down to down. It was just Indiana kept making plays. I think that 8.5 is a little much. If you give me a cleaner injury report, and I expect that this team's going to be somewhat healthy, given everything they've suffered, as much as I love the Indiana comp to UConn, doesn't this seem like a little much, given what we know about Miami?
Potentially, there are some things, though, in addition to the injuries that scare me about Miami. So I'd be curious your opinion on this. Miami missed its fourth field goal attempt of the postseason that last game. They had 10 penalties, many of which were in critical moments. Is there a shoot yourself in the foot factor you have to worry about with Mario Cristobal and being disciplined? Those are some things, I guess, that concern me a little bit against an Indiana team that we use the cliche, a team is well coached, far too often, in my opinion, but it really seems to come through in Indiana. And for a group that last year we saw in the trenches were not up to snuff with what they needed to be. And Curt Cignetti goes out and he builds up those units. And that has been such an important factor for them this year that they haven't gotten out physical and they haven't gotten out muscled. And that's what a Miami team wants to do to you.
Yeah.
So those are some things, at least, that raise red flags for Miami for me.
I think that's fair. I also think the other part about this run that I think should be pointed out, we've noted that Miami has, at least I've been surprised by this, been able to run the ball relatively well through the first three rounds of these victories. Two of their opponents were pretty average run defenses. Ole Miss, statistically, was middle of the pack, 77th in expected points added per rush on defense. Texas A&M was actually there as well. Excuse me, that was Texas A&M 77th. Ole Miss was 123rd. So this is a run that, yes, they ran the ball relatively well against Ohio State, but the other two, you ran against some weak front sevens. This is not that. This is statistically one of the better run defenses. And if all of a sudden you become one-dimensional and then that complex pass rush gets to you, you can paint a picture where Indiana does what it's been doing to its opponents.
I have no firm opinion made on this game yet, but I guarantee you there will be a play at some point in the coming days.
It's tough for us to hedge spot too, huh?
Yeah.
Got this 16-1.
Miami futures is also, and I doubled down last week too. I bet Miami in the semifinal as well. And I feel bad for you that you have to endure my text messages through all of these games. But that was another game where I'm like, why did I believe in Mario Cristobal in this group? Da, da, da. And then they end up coming out on top.
Responded with simply UConn.
We got some other interesting quarterback news today in college football as well. We'll hit on that and some of your thoughts on the NBA card as we wrap up this Monday edition of Money Moves with Best Bets and Beyond. Keep it locked right here. More VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, coming up.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
So as we were talking about the College Football Playoff National Championship last segment, Oregon might be out of the playoffs now, but apparently they were in the quarterback market. We saw the report come down that Nebraska's Dylan Raiola, who entered the transfer portal, has committed to the program. And JVT, my first thought when I saw that news come down was, okay, so that means Dante Moore is going to declare for the draft. That just makes too much sense. But then we saw the follow-up report that there has been an agreement, essentially, that should Dante Moore come back, Raiola will be his backup. And then that kind of threw me into a little bit of a tailspin. What was your reaction?
I got to think, first off, that is somewhat surprising. But as you and I were discussing, and you've actually had this conversation with Dante Moore, where it was, maybe there's going to be some good in a guy like Raiola playing at that level, sitting behind somebody. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think part of your conversation with Moore was just that, as he sat behind Dylan Gabriel when he transferred over there, and that he thought that was good for him in terms of his career. So maybe there's some of that logic there. The market, it expects that this means that Dante Moore is going to return because Fernando Mendoza is out to minus 1,200 to be the first overall pick. I would say I would take a piece of 9-1 if you're somewhere that has that market available, only in the thought of, first off, if Moore declares, which I think he's going to. As unfair as it sounds, he could only make his stock worse. Because the problem is, first, you're going to have more on tape. What if you have a bad season? Okay, then you're going to slip down. If you have a good season,
a la Garrett Nussmeier.
Yes, right. He was going. Yeah, that's a great point. This was going to be a 3, potentially 4 quarterback first-round draft. It was going to be Arch Manning. It was going to be Nussmeier. It was going to be Mendoza, and it was going to be Moore. Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at maybe 2. Ty Simpson's not even going to come out, it sounds like, because he's being flirted with by a bunch of different programs to stick around. So we'll see if that actually happens. But to your whole point, you can only worsen your stock. And the upside is I'm going to go from being maybe the number 1 overall pick to being maybe the number 1 overall pick in a class that more than likely will include Arch Manning, who will be the number 1 overall pick. So I don't think it benefits you if you're Moore to stick out a year. Your stock's as high as it's going to be. I think he's going to be in this class. And I know a lot of people are really randy about the next Joe Burrow, as some have called them in Raider circles, for Fernando Mendoza. I don't think it is this high of a probability that Mendoza is the first pick if a guy like Moore comes out. Moore's 20 years old. He's obviously young. He is malleable in terms of what you can do with him. There's a lot to like there for him, too. So I know the market fully believes that it is all Fernando Mendoza. He is not, I think, this home run prospect that deserves that big of a gap over Moore. And if he comes out, I think it would benefit you to take 9-1 on a number that could really get down to like 6-1, 5-1 pretty quickly if he declares that he's going for the draft.
Interesting, and something we'll certainly be following in the coming weeks as these players are making their decisions. Meanwhile, we did find out former ASU quarterback Sam Leavitt has also agreed to a deal to join the LSU Tigers, according to Pete Thamel, first reported this morning. And after the DeMond Williams flirtation from Washington to LSU, that obviously after the payday that he had already agreed to, had to reverse gears there, go back to Washington. I think that was interesting and good landing spot for Sam Leavitt, and Lane Kiffin gets a good one, albeit though coming off a serious injury.
Yeah, I think that makes some sense. Leavitt was going to go to one of these top-tier programs. The initial reports were, it was Texas Tech initially, and then it was Kentucky, and there's no way that he was going to choose Kentucky.
I got the Kentucky just because of Will Stein and the offense that he put together at Oregon and all of that, but the realisticness of him actually going there, he wanted to go to a big brand. Speaking of Joe Burrow, as you just mentioned, he would like to follow in those types of footsteps at LSU.
And that's an offense that's really going to help him put up some numbers if he fits in well, which I think he's going to.
Sure. Okay, let's get into the NBA here real quickly, because I know there were a handful of games in this card that did interest you, or that at least that people should know about from an injury report standpoint. So you want to kind of cruise through?
Yeah, there's a couple of games we can note here. First off, Jazz Cavs, 12.5 in favor of the Cavaliers, total 248.5 at the open. We're up to 12.5, 249.5, 13.5 some spots. Depends on where you're looking right now. Jazz obviously coming off of the franchise worst 150-95 loss at home to the Hornets. I think a lot of people might freak out about that and go, hey, man, let's fade this team. Having said that, Stormy, that might be a historic loss for them.
That's what the Hornets do to people.
Yeah, it is very true. They're also 6-3 ATS still in their last 9 games. The Jazz are. They're still covering numbers. That was, if you listen to reports and you know what the Jazz are doing here, that was a very tank-heavy game. That was a team that, in the standings, they were competing with for a potential lottery that they very much wanted to hand it a victory to. And so they benched guys, and I think they were more than willing to take that loss on the chin. So I wouldn't freak out too much about that. It's still embarrassing, but wouldn't freak out. Meanwhile, the Cavaliers, they beat the Timberwolves on Saturday. They snap an 0-4 ATS slide. They're 7-4 straight up in their last 11 games, but they've only covered 4 of those. So they're getting their legs underneath them, but they haven't been covering some of these big numbers. Very similar number to what they were laying about a week and a half ago, a little less than that, to the Denver Nuggets in one of the games, obviously, without Jokic. They needed a late fourth quarter push to get that game done, but they did not come close to covering. Depending on what we're going to see here, Nurkic is probable, so it looks like it's a clean injury report unless somebody gets added. Jazz at 13.5, if it gets up to that point, I think I would say no. At the very least, I wouldn't freak out about what the Jazz put on the floor the last time we saw them. Other interesting matchup is the Celtics on the road against the Indiana Pacers. Jaylen Brown is doubtful to play, so that's going to be a big loss for the Celtics should he not be able to go. I think that's why we're down to 5.5. On the other side, you are going to want to know what the status of Benedict Mathurin. He's out. Andrew Nembhard is going to be in this game. Nembhard's been playing pretty well, coming off of a really big game. If he can't get out there, then the Pacers, who have won their last 2, after an 0-12 straight up 4-8 ATS slide, they've covered 3 straight and won their last 2, so they are starting to turn things around a little bit here. Sadly, one of those victories coming at the cost of our Charlotte Hornets. But either way, Pacers, we'll see if they can get Nembhard out there if they goes. And then, of course, Brown's officially listed as out despite his doubtful tag here. I think you can get that there. By the way, the Celtics, last time out, lost to the Spurs on Saturday. Jaylen Brown, with some pointed words about the officiating afterward, said, F it, I don't care if I get fined, and then proceeded to complain about the fact that they were not getting to the free throw line there. They have failed to cover their last 3 games. Really of note, I think the other 2 that are worth talking about here really quickly, we mentioned this in passing. Let me double check to see if the injury report is out yet, because this is the second leg of a back-to-back. But Raptors and 76ers does have some weight to it, if you will. 76ers, a 3-point favorite with a total of 219.5. Again, needed overtime and essentially a buzzer beater, a free throw, to get this thing done for Toronto. That was a game that did not have the big boys out there, Joel Embiid, Paul George. Today for the Philadelphia 76ers, Embiid questionable, Paul George questionable. Okay. I would fancy a guess that they're going to be out there tonight. So big matchup. This might get out to like 4.5 if both of them end up playing. And last and certainly not least, it's a big card. Charlotte Hornets on the road against Los Angeles Clippers. Kawhi Leonard is questionable. We will see if he can get out there. Some names to note for the Hornets. Bridges is probable, but we've seen some probable downgrades before. The other one is Colin Sexton off the bench, and whether or not he will play, he is questionable for Charlotte, who is just a 4.5-point underdog on the road against the Clippers.
All right, let's close things out with the best bets. To recap, pretty strong weekend for both of us. The 49ers come through, cover the 5.5, 6, any number, obviously, with them winning that outright. The under 45.5 comes home as well, albeit dicey when the Eagles were threatening late. I was a little bit stressed, to say the least, not only that San Francisco would lose, but that my bets would lose as well. The Rams-Panthers gets over. They, however, ruined my 6.5-point teaser, and I'm going to be upset if the Texans leg cash today because of I teased all of the games, everything hit except for the Rams, so that's unfortunate on that 4-1 shot we took, and the Jags first half didn't get there. College football, 2-0 for that semifinal game with Indiana and Oregon. Indiana laying the 3, no sweat. De'Ara Hill, however, was a sweat to get over that 1.5 receptions. We got it in the fourth quarter. And then the 2 plays we did in the NHL yesterday for Live Bet Sunday came through as well. And you cashed your first NHL ticket of the season. Let's get it.
Yes.
I am moving on to today, though. I need to close out with the Steelers +9 for our teaser with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I also laid the Texans with the first half. When I bet it, it was -120. You can get that for a better price now in Pittsburgh tonight. They have been really good, fast starters, winning the first half by a field goal or more in 7 straight games. Meanwhile, the Steelers have been much slower starting. And I'm also on Dalton Schultz over 41.5 for the receiving yards today, top 70 in 2 of the last 4 games. And this is a Pittsburgh defense that struggles against opposing tight ends, 4th worst in the National Football League, giving up an average of 65.9 yards receiving to opposing tight ends.
Yeah, you got me confused there for a second because when I looked at our rundown today, I was like, man, she was really on all that, but a lot of it was the teaser. So
yeah, it was a big teaser.
Big teasy. Mine did not come through. I put one in as well, but I didn't get there. All right, for me, the weekend recap really quickly as we're up against it here. As you mentioned, a lot of the similar plays here, but Rams team total over 28.5. The teaser with the Packers and the Jags. Chargers don't get theirs, 3.5-point dogs. Indiana does in that first period, over 1.5 on Sunday. For today, adding a couple of things to the docket. CJ Stroud over 11.5 rushing yards tonight at -120, and then adding to the portfolio Nuggets to win the finals at 8-1. We will be recording a new episode of Pod to the Futures today. We'll discuss that at length later tonight after Monday Night Football.
I think I might need to add that too, or maybe the conference, something like that with the Nuggets, because I like what you were discussing earlier on Call Me Crazy, just about the buy point with the Nuggets, which that's a good reminder.
Ridiculous.
That's a good reminder too. Speaking of podcasts, not only do you have Hardwood Handicappers that you join, Pod to the Futures, but Money Moves each and every day. We have the show uploaded in podcast form so you can listen on your own time. Just search Money Moves in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is. All right, you hear that music? That's a wrap for us today. Thanks so much for hanging out. Good luck with your bets. Enjoy Monday Night Football once more with the Texans and Steelers going head-to-head. Keep it locked right here, though, on VSiN. Follow the Money with Mitch and Pauly coming up after this. Have a great day.